All right, folks, glad to have all of you here today on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's get right into it. We've been paying attention to two major cases involving black men who've been shot and killed by cops. First off, in Chicago, today the prosecution, they arrested after calling 24 witnesses in the trial of Jason Van Dyke. He is the officer on trial for murder in the death of Laquan McDonald. They called an expert to the witness today, a use of force expert, who testified that the risk posed by McDonald did not justify the use of deadly force, and that once McDonald fell to the pavement after he was first shot, he was clearly incapacitated. Yet Van Dyke kept shooting for 12 more seconds while McDonald was on the ground. Now the defense will put on their case, and we'll be watching that as well. Let's go to Dallas, where the district attorney there has decided to charge Amber Geiger with murder, upping the charge from manslaughter to murder. Of course, Botham Jean's family has been pushing for murder charges, and so the DA has announced, Faith Johnson, that she is open to doing that. And so that's the latest developments in the Laquan McDonald case, but also the Botham Jean case. Folks, Donald Trump has pretty much said that he is going to limit 30,000 refugees coming into the United States every single year. It is the lowest number since 1980. That's what's going on with Donald Trump. He, of course, has been attacking folks who are illegal immigrants, folks who are undocumented. He has been going after folks who are from countries where people of color. And so that has been the standard policy of this administration. Same thing when it comes to Dreamers. We still have no deal between Republicans and Democrats. But one of the folks who has been extremely vocal about these issues, he has talked about it for quite some time, is my buddy, Jose Antonio Vargas. He has a new book out, and it's called Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. He joins us right now from the YouTube headquarters in New York. Jose, always good to see you. Also, Pulitzer Prize winner. And so, first off, I got to ask you, with all of what they have with ICE and how literally they're snatching people as they are heading to hospitals, and what is happening down with the border, did you think it was going to be this bad with the election of Donald Trump?
Yes. Yes, and also we have to remember that Donald Trump's policies are only the culmination of what we've been doing since the 90s, right? When Bill Clinton got tough on crime in the mid-90s, he got tough on immigration. That's why, for example, if I ever were to leave this country, I've been here 25 years, as you know, right? If I were to leave, I would have to face a 10-year bar before I could come back, if I could come back. That's because of what Bill Clinton signed into law, right? I've met so many undocumented people in this country who are married, and even though they're married and can adjust their status, they can't, because once you cross the border more than twice from Mexico, for example, you're barred for life. So these laws have been in place, and both Democrats and Republicans have been responsible for these nonsensical laws. So Trump just took advantage of all of that, and he is like the manifestation of all bad policies we've ever had on immigration.
And one of the things that we're seeing, obviously, right now, is taking place across this country, that we still have so many children who have not been returned to their parents, and we're seeing children who also, frankly, when they are returned, can't even recognize their parents.
So actually, this is the thing about writing this book. Though, was the toughest was, you know, I haven't seen my mom since she sent me here when I was 12, so I haven't seen her for 25 years. And it's hard to talk about that because I don't know how to talk about it.
She lives where?
In the Philippines, where I'm from, right? So I talked to her, of course, on Facebook. You know, I sent her money. I've been supporting her financially, which is what a lot of immigrants do, right? So I didn't really get to think about what sacrifice she made until I was detained in Texas in 2014. Like in the book, I write about what was it like to share a jail cell. That's what it is. It's a jail cell. I was with the boys because it's separated by gender. So it was about 15 boys from ages 4 to about 15. And you're watching them being jailed because this country can't have a conversation about immigration, that we're locking kids up. Right. Remember back then, the headlines was illegal immigrant children, right? And all I could think about was like, why did my mom do that? And I was thinking about it in the context of, what did those parents say to their kids before they said, go walk? I'd rather you walk than stay here. You know what was interesting? The shoes they were wearing, because, you know, when they arrest you, they take your shoelaces and your belt, right? Because they're afraid that you might hang yourself. So the only thing I had in common with those kids were we had no shoelaces. So I kept looking at their shoes, and all the shoes were like mostly Adidas, Reebok, Nikes. It's fascinating that American products can go to those countries, right? And yet we lock their kids up. And, you know, when it comes to this issue, you and I have talked about immigration, and I'm always so grateful that you're so always willing to intersect these issues, because as you and I both know, we don't talk about undocumented black immigrants in this country. We're in New York. Undocumented Caribbean, Africans, and Queens, and Brooklyn.
Folks from Bermuda, from the West Indies.
And because of systematic racism, higher detention rates, higher deportation rates, right? So what's happening now, though, is because of Trump, we have to figure out how can we bring these issues together. Like, what does that look like? And for me, when I was detained, all I could think about was, how can we marry mass detention and mass incarceration in this country? How can we have that conversation so that black and brown people and Asian people all get together and try to figure out what we can do together?
You have a number of chapters in here, and one that jumps out is you call it Second Coming Out. And for folks who don't know, you're gay.
Yeah.
But you put a lot on the line because you win the Pulitzer Prize, and you come out and say, I'm undocumented.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people hiding in the shadows. Why did you feel it was so important to say, I must publicly come out and confront these policies?
Well, first of all, right, there was no way of fixing it. I've been here since I was 12. I thought by the time I was 30, this was something I could fix. But there was no fixing it. Like, there's no path for someone like me, as connected as I am, as good of a resume I have, there's no path for someone like me to get, quote-unquote, legal. So when I started talking to lawyers, 20 lawyers, all of them said, you cannot publicly say that you've been committing fraud and breaking laws. The moment they kept saying that, you know what I kept thinking about? Actually, this is in the book, Toni Morrison. The moment I realized that it was against the law for me to stay here, you know, if it wasn't kind of understanding and reading what James Baldwin, the title actually is an allusion to Notes of a Native Son. I mean, that book like woke me up when I was in high school. And this idea that the master narrative of not just America, but the way we talk about immigration in this country, about people thinking that for some people I'm quote-unquote illegal, I'm a criminal. Well, wait a second. Who created the laws? Why are the laws the way that they are? You know, the title of the book is Citizen, right? Like, you cannot separate who we consider citizens of this country with what we consider legal in this country.
And you've been paying a couple of taxes.
Okay, I have paid so much taxes, I should be a Republican. Right? I'm happy to pay the taxes because you know why? I love public schools. I'm a product of public schools. Actually, this is how crazy it is. A few months ago, they're naming an elementary school after me. Where I grew up in Mountain View, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
It's a public school. Then I met the principal, Dr. Mike Jones, a black educator from Virginia. I love that. Like, the principal of Jose Antonio Vargas Elementary School is this African-American man who grew up in Virginia. And how we're going to educate those kindergarten to fifth graders. How we talk to them about immigration and race and identity and who constructs power and legality in this country. Like, look, they can deport me all they want. I mean, they can deport me by just being here. But Jose Antonio Vargas is going to be there right in Mountain View, not too far from Google.
Folks, the book is called Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. Of course, I know you have to go to an event. We're going to have a longer conversation when we get to D.C.
Thanks for everything.
But I certainly appreciate it. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
And tell all hello at your event you're going to at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I will do that.
Tell Maria in the host I said what's up.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Again, be sure to get Jose's book. Jose, thank you so very much. Folks, we talk about the response of this president when it comes to people of color, and what took place in Puerto Rico is an absolute travesty. A year ago, Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, but it also devastated the U.S. Virgin Islands. Joining us right now from the U.S. Virgin Islands is Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett. She represents the Virgin Islands in the United States Congress. Congresswoman, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me this evening.
We did not want to ignore what happened in the Virgin Islands. Of course, we often had you on, had others from there, what took place last year. Give us a sense where where does the island stand today? There was so much devastation to the airport, to the tourist industry. Have you completely recovered? If you had to put a percentage on it, exactly how far have you come back?
Well, you know, we were struck by two hurricanes, both Irma and Maria, while they were Category 5 hurricanes. There's been no other place in the United States that has been hit by two Category 5 hurricanes. One was September 6th, and then the other, of course, September 20th. But during that time that happened, we lost much of our infrastructure. 17 of our 31 schools had 50% or more damage. 9 of them were absolutely destroyed. Both of our main hospitals had 50% capacity taken out of them. And so what's really happening now in the Virgin Islands is that we're just beginning to do that recovery. Of course, our utility system is backed up, but much of our vital infrastructure still leaves a lot to be desired. So, Roland, for the last year, our children were in school for only 4 hours a day in public schools because they had to share school facilities. And this year, when our governor tried to bring the schools back up online, that was not possible. So there's a percentage of our students who are not in school as yet, and those who are facing conditions that should not be for American children. We have children who are sitting on milk crates in the first week of school, sitting on the desk, libraries with no books in them because the supplies are not there. Our hospitals are still not 100%. Most of the individuals who are on dialysis or need inpatient have to do so outside of the Virgin Islands. So there's a lot of work to be done. Congress did an amazing job of appropriating the right amount of money to be able, and also recognizing that there had been underfunding for so many years in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, which necessitated them giving us additional funding to harden our systems and to create resilience. But now what we're facing, Roland, and I'm glad here to show you, is that this administration is slow walking the money. They're putting stipulations on there that Congress did not intend. And so we're having a much slower recovery than we should be.
Folks in the control room, please let me know. Talk to Anthony. Can you actually hear me? Have we lost audio here? But also, I know I can't hear her. Okay, so guys, please let me know how we can get the Congresswoman back. I have absolutely no audio from our control room or from the Congresswoman. Okay, Congresswoman, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I think so. We got you back here. And so one of the things that I really want to focus on, obviously, so much of your economy is tourism. What more do you need from the federal government? Are you still in need from private industry as well? Give me a sense of that.
Well, unfortunately, we do rely mostly on tourism. We had an oil refinery that closed in 2012 that drove our unemployment up to 18%. We're about to bring that back online. And of course, we rely on other things. Congress has decimated other areas of our economy, financial services and others through the tax codes that they just passed this past year. But what we need from Congress is pushing Congress to get the administration to release funding so that we can begin the rebuilding. A lot of our hotels are waiting for some discussions with the federal government to get tax incentive, tax credits to be able to do the rebuilding. We've lost more than half of our hotel stock, and that's really hurtful to us, as well as the erosion to our beach, trying to get releases for Army Corps to facilitate beach cleanups and re-putting more sand back down in many of the areas to make this a pristine area again. But Roland, the real concern of everyday Virgin Islanders is for our hospital and our schools to get back up so that we can bring our elders and those who are sick back on island, have substantial health care so the Virgin Islanders feel safe, and that our children can be in facilities which are conducive to learning, so that our teachers can have desks, can have chairs, that there are books again in our libraries for our children to learn.
Any particular thing that you want from Black America? What kind of outreach have you seen from organizations? What can the average citizen do to assist the Virgin Islands to get back on its feet?
Well, in having you be an advocate for us, There have been so many from the Black Caucus as well as the Democratic Caucus who have been retweeting this year because so many in the media focus on whatever Trump puts out in his latest tweet, being totally disrespectful to the people of Puerto Rico by talking about not counting the death toll that has been substantiated by independent verification. But what we want Black Americans to do is to tell them not to forget about the Virgin Islands, that our decimation from hurricanes was much more substantial than Puerto Rico in terms of the strength of the hurricanes and what it did to our basic infrastructure, and saying not to forget. Roland, remember that this president has disrespected us completely. He has never visited the Virgin Islands after our hurricanes. He's gone everywhere. He invited our governor to come and visit him on an aircraft carrier outside of Puerto Rico, but didn't think we were important enough to come and visit our shores. We have veterans here, people who have made the ultimate sacrifice. We've been a part of this country in 2017, 100 years. We're Americans, and we don't want to be treated as second-class citizens. And we're asking people of color, people of conscience, to support us and to say, don't forget the Virgin Islands. We're Americans, too.
All right, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much, and certainly give our thoughts and prayers to everyone down there in the Virgin Islands, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right, folks. It's going to be a huge battle on Monday on Capitol Hill, where you're going to have conflicting testimony. A woman who accuses Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh of attempting to rape her. He absolutely denies it. It has been a wild week in Washington, D.C., where she initially said that she wanted to testify. Then she said that there should be an FBI investigation. Well, over the last 24 hours, we've had lots of things actually happening back and forth. And so, as a result, we expect her to now testify on Monday. But other witnesses will not be allowed to testify. Chuck Grassley, of course, he is the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He is holding firm, and he also is making it clear he will not allow for there to be an FBI investigation. Joining us right now here in New York is Tamika Mallory. She's the co-president of the Women's March. Tamika, glad to have you here. It's been very interesting watching all of this. And where you have Senator Orrin Hatch sounding very similar to the things that he said about Anita Hill when in that confirmation hearing in 1991. You have a Republican congressman out of Florida who made a joke by saying that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a Supreme Court justice, said that Abraham Lincoln groped her. Right. You have Republicans who are mocking her,
Absolutely.
And so that's what. I mean, what do you say about what is going on here?
I mean, it's obviously very clear that from 1991, when we had the Anita Hill situation, until now, not much has changed. Even in the Me Too era, it is very clear that the federal government, and particularly the Senate, has not taken any real steps, and the Judiciary Committee has not taken any real steps to deal with sexual harassment and sexual assault in a real way. I mean, that is very clear. It's the same scenario playing out again. And we actually have the opportunity this time, knowing all that we know and having the Me Too era be so strong, to rewrite history and to right the wrongs that we were unable to take care of at the time when Anita Hill came forward with her story.
And one of the things that is interesting to me is that when you see this back and forth, when you see her say there needs to be an investigation. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Democrats don't want to see him confirmed.
Right.
Because they're still angry about what took place with Merrick Garland. But what's also interesting is that on the Republican side, they absolutely want this to be done quickly. They want him on the court before the court convenes on October 4th. They want this to happen before the midterm elections. And the White House makes it clear they're not going to pull his name.
Absolutely. And they're willing to do it at all costs. They do not even care. And they've been clear about that. First of all, let's be clear. Yes, Dr. Ford, we believe her. And this particular situation is extremely serious. And we believe as women and just as, good moral citizens that she should be heard and that there should be a federal FBI investigation. And that what's happening right now is borderline criminal. So that's one thing. But also, we were already, Women's March and other groups, really Women's March leading there at the Senate hearings, protesting already, because we know that this particular candidate, while we don't know a lot about Kavanaugh, we do know that in every instance where he showed up in a place that is in reference to, I guess, being on the right side of history, it hasn't been good. He has sided with corporations and institutions over people and workers. We have seen him in a number of situations that we do not believe that he is someone that should have a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. And the mere fact that Donald Trump, someone who really should be in jail, really, let's be serious here. This man is under investigation and he's unindicted, but we all know that he is really pretty much guilty of treason in this country, that he is the person who put forth Brett Kavanaugh. That in itself is very dangerous. So people were already protesting having this man to receive this type of appointment, and now we have a woman to come forward and pretty much make it very clear that he is not someone who at least should be pushed through. I mean, we should have a real investigation here. Why not? What is there to hide? But it's very clear that, you know, Grassley and all of these people who just decided they're going to make it happen anyway.
Professor Christine Blasey Ford is her name. There were a number of women who have been flooding the halls of Congress over the last couple of days. Do you expect Monday to really be a contentious day? What is the Women's March plan for Monday?
So, well, and also I need to make sure to state that today there were over 60 women and men, arrested in the Hart Senate office building, because I think the point that we need to make here is you may actually get this done, but we will primary you and we will show up and make sure that you feel us in the districts and on the local level. So our senators need to be very clear about that. Monday, we're not 100% sure that she's going to testify on Monday. She actually has said that Monday she does not want to testify. So there's some back and forth. But over the week, we know that it will happen. And I believe that people are going to show up. They're going to be loud and bold. And, of course, behind the scenes, there are many organizations and folks on the ground talking about what it looks like to show up. And, yes, Women's March will certainly be there, as we have since the beginning of these hearings.
All right, then. Hold tight 1 second. I'm going to go to a break right now, folks. Of course, we're going to share with you, of course, our quote of the day. So we'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Blackness is no longer in color. It is an attitude. Comedian and activist Dick Gregory.
All right, folks, welcome back. We'll continue our conversation with Tamika Mallory. Tamika, lots of pressure being put on two Republican United States senators, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And neither one has said how they're going to vote. Claire McCaskill, the senator from Missouri, she's already tweeted she's going to vote against Kavanaugh. She, of course, is facing a very tough test. You have Heitkamp in Montana as well. Doug Jones in Alabama. There was a lot of talk Saturday night at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation dinner as to how he was going to vote, and a lot of black folks said they are concerned as to that he may decide to vote for Kavanaugh on full well to appease conservatives in his state.
I think that would be very foolish of him. I think that he ought to know who put him in that position. And if he does that, he will definitely pay the consequences and repercussions of that. I mean, I think the reality, Roland, is that we have to be very serious at this point. We as voters, we as American citizens, we have to understand that the Republicans, they actually have the power at this point. And they could, in fact, get it done. But just because they have the power to get it done doesn't mean that we don't have the power to show up and make sure that they feel what decision they made against the American people's wishes.
And what type of things are you doing? Is Women's March doing? Are you calling? Are you faxing? Are you emailing? You know, what are you doing?
So we've asked people, of course, to call their senators, and particularly to focus on those that you named. We've been very specific about calling Maine and Alaska, staying on those particular senators. And I think also, I mean, we've been doing the protests, and we know, folks, not everyone has to get arrested. People have just been showing up. But we've also been focused very seriously, as you and I talk about all the time, on the midterm elections. lines. We cannot just sit back and only focus on this one issue. We may not win here, although we do believe that there is a chance that Kavanaugh may have to withdraw, that this hearing, this testimony may be so strong that the outrage around the country may put the pressure on him to have to withdraw. And we hope that the senators do the right thing. We've seen many of our folks who are there in terms of Senator Kamala Harris and, and Senator Cory Booker doing a good job of trying to hold the line, but it may not work. But we do have other forms of recourse, and I think we have to be focused on making sure that we don't just lay down on this, that we continue to work throughout November, and we've got a long stretch thereafter.
Have white women finally woke up?
Well, there are many who are. And you know what? I have to say, yes, there was a 53% problem. And I still think that 53% is not really as active as they should be. But there is a 47%. And when we talk about that, let's just be clear, 53% of white women who voted in the election voted for Donald Trump. But there was a 47% who did not. And we've been working with these women and trying to organize with them. So, yes, they woke up. But I cannot let our women off the hook. It's not just about white women and what they're doing. Because I've had a number of people ask me, are the white ladies, when all of this is said and done, our communities will be impacted the most. Black folks and Latino folks and just people of color are the ones who will suffer the consequences of whatever happens from the Supreme Court level all the way down to the local level. And therefore, we have a responsibility to show up as well. All
right. Speaking of mobilizing, organizing, the folks with Black Votes Matter, they have been doing that. Cliff Albright, also Latasha Brown, they're the co-founders of that. And so they've been traveling all across the South with the bus Black Votes Matter. And they put this video together. We wanted to share it with you. Take a look.
We're on the first day of Black Voters Matter, the South is Rising voter outreach tour. Black Voters Matter is one of the few groups that actually focuses on the Black Belt and rural America. So we are going out to the rural countryside to connect with communities and people that are doing amazing voter work.
Everybody keeps talking about Alabama, Doug Jones, and black women with the 98%. Well, that's each of you. It just took the country time to know what you do every day.
We want to work in coalition with you all and with groups that are organized. Organize yourself. The bottom line is sometimes it is our belief that is stopping us, right? And not believing in our own power. The power is us. Ain't nobody giving us nothing. We don't need anybody to give us nothing. We got everything we need.
We have a record number of women who are running to lead our communities, and I just believe that it's the right time. I believe that people are hungry for change.
It's important to agree to take 5 friends to go and vote because Black voters matter.
We care, and we came more than voting. We just want to remind you that we love you. You are not alone. We are standing in solidarity with you. Very excited to see the bus. I want to get on the bus.
I'm so excited about this tour. Finally, somebody is coming down south and seeing what we're about, right? And listening to the minds and souls and wishes of our folks to figure out where and how we need to govern and be.
Our voice matters and we count, and we're going to make it known that the black vote made the difference.
My main focus is young people. You know, I like to see the young people get involved. Everybody vote blonde, they better vote.
We have a team over at the college that's doing a knock and drag. They're going to dorms, they're sweeping the dorms, they're putting them on vans, and they're actually bringing them over here to vote.
North Florida, sometimes we say South Georgia, South Alabama, but North Florida got it going on, and we just want to support and help amplify the messages.
We think that the way that you end voter suppression is that we've got to support the people on the front lines that are doing the work to stop it. But it really is about the future of this nation and the future of how we're going to go forward around making sure that every single person has access to the ballot. Oh, I am excited. I'm ready. I am fired up. I am fired up.
All right, so we certainly want to thank the folks who Black Votes Matter for that particular video as well. And so we just wanted to show you what they're doing over the next 50 days. They'll be traveling all across the South, going to Georgia and Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, trying to get folks not only registered, but also to get them to vote. And Tamika, on that particular point there, that's one of the points I keep telling. Everybody keeps saying vote, 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 but we have registration deadlines coming up. Okay, you got to get registered first before you can vote.
We talked about that last week at the CBC event that we did with formerly incarcerated folks. There are a lot of people who are still not registered, and that's what we've been asking the formerly incarcerated community to focus on over these next 49 days, I guess, or 48 days. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but we're asking people to make sure people are registered. And if you are a formerly incarcerated person who can't vote because you live in a state where your voting rights have not been restored, someone can vote for you. So there may be another family member. There may be, you need to take people to the polls and make sure. And so September 25th is the National Voter Registration Day, where people will be all over the country trying to get folks registered. And people need to know in your local community, in your particular state, what is the deadline? It's sometime at the beginning of October in order to be registered for the November election. And we're trying to get folks to do that. And to your point, not only do you need to be registered, you also need to be educated on who to vote for. Just because someone shows up at your church and shakes the babies and gives the grandmothers the kiss does not mean that that is a person that's going to be on your issues. We need to make sure that people are educated as well. So we're hoping that organizations and churches and others understand how important this is. We cannot allow the 2010 scenario to play out again right now. We have to make sure that we are serious and that our people know how important the midterm elections are, and that this is not an election that we can sit home on.
All right, then. Certainly a huge, huge election that's coming up. I want to go to another story right now that's pretty interesting. So Donald Trump, a few days ago, tweeted this particular video. Okay, and in this video, it shows some individuals who were actually on a boat. And in the tweet, he goes something along the lines the Cajun Navy. So I get a call today from Hashim Nzinga, New Black Panther Party, and he says Trump gave us credit because that actually is a New Black Panther Party boat. Okay. He said, well, they've had these hurricanes, New Black Panthers, they've been traveling to these places, helping to rescue people. And I said, Hashim, are you serious? So I scroll back, and this is about 5 or 6 days ago, this particular video. And he said, yeah, he said it's one of our guys. And he said there's a guy named AJ who was a former member of the military who is on that particular boat. And so in a second, we're going to talk to Hashim because certainly I know that it's probably a shock to Donald Trump, him showing some love to the New Black Panther Party. But also, we talk about the veterans. Of course, we've been covering the Colin Kaepernick case. And as a sister who's out of Florida, she has not been particularly happy. We have Hashim? Okay, so I'm going to go to Kai a little bit in a bit. But let me go to Hashim right now. Hashim, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Looking at you. Can you hear me?
So, Hashim, you called. Yeah, I can hear you. You called me today. And you said that Donald Trump may not have realized he was praising the New Black Panther Party for their work with Hurricane Florence?
Well, he was probably watching or showing the birth of a nation at the White House and didn't know, and then was tweeting at the same time.
And so, so in that video that's on his Twitter feed, who's actually in the boat? Who is the brother? Who is the brother who's in the boat? You said he's a former member of the military?
Yeah, we got a lot of members of the New Black Panther Party who come out of the military and get a lot of training, and they want to use that for their people and protect their people, and AJ is one of them. He's been trained, and he's been doing the work of saving people in water for like the last 15 years. But as you well know, Roland, from Katrina and under the leadership of Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, we took 50 Panthers into Katrina. We took over 50 Panthers into Katrina. So we've been doing these rescue missions for 20 years and not getting any recognition, but we don't look for the slave master to give us recognition because we do it to save our people.
And so do you still have an ongoing response to what's happening with the flood waters there in North Carolina?
Yeah, what we're doing now is getting the next wave together, which is water, generators, and we're collecting stuff. And we'll be going back in and out of North Carolina like we usually do, probably for the next month.
And you'll be doing not just rescues, but are you also providing supplies and things along those lines?
Oh, that's the main thing. We find out what the people need, and we come back and tell the community, because if you try to buy a case of water down there, as you know, Roland, it can be $24 to $30. So we can get our water here still for $6 and $5. So we load up trucks and we load up trailers, and we take the people, water. Some of the power will be out there for weeks and weeks, so we try to gather generators and rent generators. And we keep going back and forth from all over the nation.
So do you expect Donald Trump to delete that tweet once he finds out that that Cajun Navy he was praising is actually the new Black Panther Party?
Well, Trump put all FEMA's money over to ICE to chase people out this country, so like I said at the beginning, he's probably like in 1919, he's sitting there in the White House watching Birth of a Nation. So by the time it go off and he realizes what's going on, he probably will delete it.
All right. Ashim Nzinga, new Black Panther Party. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Hey, Roland. Black Power.
All right, then. So, folks, I was talking about veterans. I was talking about in terms of work that they do. And as a sister to me, her name is Kaya Wright. She's a former U.S. Army attorney, and she has not been happy with veterans and how they have been responding to Colin Kaepernick. So she has launched this website. It's called CourageUnderFire.org, and she's chronicling all of the NFL silent protests in support of Colin Kaepernick and social justice. Kaya Wright, are you there?
I am.
All right, then. So Kaya, we have Veterans for Kaepernick. There's a hashtag out there. Veterans, of course, who they've expressed, they said they support Colin Kaepernick. What have you been hearing, and what was that one thing that triggered you to say, you know what, I have to create this in order to show exactly why he's protesting and that all veterans are not opposing him?
Well, when he first started protesting back in August of 2016, I kept hearing people invoking veterans in order to castigate him, okay? And it really upset me because those of us who did support him weren't getting any focus, and the narrative was all about veterans who didn't support him and the flag and the anthem, which ostensibly it still is, right? Unfortunately. So the first thing I did was I wrote an open letter to Kaepernick. I sent it off to the Root, and they published it. And so then I continued to just follow what was going on with the protest. And I saw young people. I saw college students, high school students. I saw a Texas middle school type football team get their season canceled all over protesting during the anthem. And I said, I really need to do something to honor those who had the courage to demonstrate during the anthem. So that was the initial catalyst. And then I thought about the fact that Muhammad Ali didn't have anyone to chronicle what he did. And here we are in the middle of a historic movement. So I wanted to chronicle this movement. That was the second purpose. And then I wanted to provide analysis and discourse to encourage those who might be on the fence about protesting. We've seen what happened to Kaepernick. We've seen what's now happening to Eric Reed. And then across the country with everyday people, high school students, college students who continue to be maligned, suspended, kicked off of teams, et cetera, simply for refusing to participate in this ritual, which is a fallacy, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing done. And I created an entire website dedicated to those three purposes.
And so what has been the response of other veterans?
Well, it actually depends, right? Because, veterans don't have a monopoly on the flag and the anthem. So many black veterans, for example, support it. Not all, but most do. I mean, we're black people. And you have many white veterans who do not. They're white people. They're not any less racist than any other, group of whites. And you have some whites who support it as well, as far as the other side. So it just depends. You have support and you have those who object.
All right, then. Tamika, you got a question for Kai, right?
Oh, question would be, my sis, first of all, thank you for your courage, and what you're trying to do. And I wonder, how can people help? Like, what can we do to be supportive of your site?
Well, for sure, people should tell other folks about the site, come to the site and help support it. I really want to get the word out there. It is the most accurate, most comprehensive resource there is on the protests. I mean, I track all of the protests, college, high school, professional, and every week, during the preseason and the last 2 weeks, I'm not watching any games. Okay, my boycott is strong, but I do follow all the protest news. And every one of these major outlets, they have hundreds, thousands, whatever of people, and it's just me by myself, and their information is inaccurate. They have the wrong number of protests. Etc. So I would say, donate to the site, tell other folks about the site, tell some of the players about the site. I want them to know that there is this resource there that supports them. And not only that, other folks just across the country are like, hey, I'm not sure if I want to do this. Come to the site. Check it out. Lots of great information there, all the statutes, everything. A one-stop shop for everything National Anthem protest.
All right, then. Kai Wright, go ahead.
Kai is going to go back to something else.
All right, Kai Wright, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
No worries. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks a bunch. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say, similar to how we can help Kaya, the same thing with the new Black Panther Party. We are so quick to invest our money in the Red Cross and these major organizations when we see disaster hit. But the local folks, the people with grassroots organizations and those people who actually come from the communities, we need to support. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we learn that from, this issue. Maybe he did, Donald Trump, with all of his ways, he uplifted our ability to see a local grassroots effort to help save our people.
All right, then. Well, Tamika, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. Always good to see you. All right. All right, thanks a bunch. All right, folks, I'm going to go to a break right now. We're going to show you, of course, how you can actually watch the show. And so then I'll come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And I have a quick conversation here with Mark Thompson, the Sirius XM radio show host. Of course, Make It Plain. We'll be back. Roland Martin Unfiltered in just a moment. All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. So first of all, let me say this here. We apparently had some serious technical difficulties with being able to live stream on our Facebook page. I don't know why. And I think also we have some issues in our YouTube channel. And so Periscope has been going just fine. And so we appreciate the folks who have been watching. We're going to try to figure out what in the world is happening. We were broadcasting from this facility a few weeks ago, a month ago, when I interviewed Spike Lee, and we had no issues whatsoever. And so we'll try to figure out exactly what's wrong. And, of course, you can always see the show on video on demand as soon as the show is over. And, of course, we'll be restreaming the show at 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. as well, and we just showed that. Joining me right now, though, is Mark Thompson. He, of course, is the host, the morning host of Make It Plain on Sirius XM Radio. Glad to have him here.
Hey, brother.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
One of the things I was talking to Tamika about was the midterm elections.
Sure.
And there's a lot of focus, energy, and attention on black women.
Sure.
Where in the hell are organized black men?
That's a good question. You stumped me there.
I mean, because it's just interesting is that in 2012, there was a 9-point gap between black men and black women. So, in terms of the numbers who voted for President Obama.
Right.
In 2016, exact same thing.
Yeah.
94% of black women supported Hillary Clinton. 85% of black men supported Hillary Clinton. It's the exact same 9-point gap.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, when, look, I was trying to get, frankly, both candidates, surrogates on the air. And I told Hillary Clinton's campaign, where are y'all black men? I said, you've got John Legend, you got Pharrell, you've got Magic Johnson, you got Alvin Brown, former mayor of Jacksonville. Why in the hell y'all aren't putting them out there? I'm like, something's going on here. And when you look at the support of Donald Trump, black women hate the Republican Party. His black support is coming from black men.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think black men may be somewhat more cynical still about politics. I mean, let's face it, a lot of times we talk to brothers, and they say, what's the point in voting? Mark and Roland, it ain't going to change nothing. Nothing's going to change. And also, quite frankly, I think we need to acknowledge, sometimes even black men assimilate into larger society. I debated some brothers who said, couldn't a woman be president? You can't have a woman in the White House. So Donald Trump has that swagger, that confrontational, aggressive nature, a lot of testosterone going, at least that's what he portrays himself to have. I don't think he really has it. And I'm sure some people go for that. But, look, I was with Gwen Moore at the Congressional Black Caucus the other day, and she said, the last day of the caucus, she said one of the most profound things, Roland. She said, you all, the people who aren't voting are not in the abstract. They're people you and I know.
Right.
They sit at our dinner table and eat our food. Some of them sleep next to us in the bed. She told a story about a pair of twins she knew. One twin voted and the other one didn't. She said, how does that happen? How does a twin vote and the other one doesn't bother to go vote?
Right.
So really, as usual, oftentimes black women have to carry a lot of weight. Sisters, you got to say to us brothers, look, you got to go vote. You got to get out. Matter of fact, some of y'all might need to say to some of these brothers, if we're going to continue in whatever arrangement we continue in, I want to see a voter registration card.
Basically what Mark is saying, no vote, no sex. No vote, no eating.
Basically,
no vote, no
do.
cooking.
Yeah. But brothers got to come up.
But I have been surprised that after the Doug Jones election in Alabama, and there was so much attention, and the great work that DeWanna Watson is doing, Latasha Brown, Adrian Shropshire, Collective Pack, Quentin and Stephanie. I have been surprised that no one has stepped up and said, we're going to have an initiative that specifically targets black men.
Well, that's true, and that's probably something that's missing. I mean, honestly, I don't know that there's an initiative that specifically targets black women. I think it's just been an organic type of a thing where black women have shown.
They're targeting them. What I mean is you have these sisters who are very vocal, and they're making it clear that they are energizing and going after black men. When I look at the report that we live streamed last week that the Black Women's Roundtable put out, where you had all those sisters who were in a particular room at Congressional Black Caucus, there was not a comparable room of just brothers talking about brothers and electoral politics.
But like you said, though, I mean, a lot of the sisters like Latasha, I mean, I know that they're registering and targeting black men.
Right.
I just think, though, the focus is long overdue. I think what's happening is people coming to the realization of the importance of black women and the role they played, especially in light of Doug Jones, and especially because he was someone who was a sexual abuser of women. So I think the moniker's on women. I confess, you know, we had this conversation on the weekend. It was Men's Day at Union Temple on Sundays, you probably know. Minister Farrakhan spoke. Melanie Campbell was also there and spoke. And she pointed out, we had the numbers to show that the year after the Million Man March was the largest registration, the largest turnout of black men ever. So we know that it's possible. I just think, you know, for some reason, we may have fallen off in terms of the emphasis. Hopefully, that will change right now. But it's a challenge. I'm going to tell you, right in the middle of this Kavanaugh thing, all that's going to do is continue to mobilize women. So maybe it's up to you and me, brother, to remind
but men should also be mobilized, because men should be saying, we don't want to see women sexually assaulted. We don't want to see women sexually harassed. Men should be speaking up, making that clear.
You're right. And we have to say that, Roland. But, you know, at the base level, and what the mainstream media often does is make it a horse race. And the mainstream media tends to skew conservative. I don't care what anybody says. They try to be as non-liberal as possible. So they'll paint a picture as if this is a battle between the sexes or a man versus a woman thing. And even some of us get confused and think, well, if a woman can say that about Kavanaugh or somebody else, what if a woman says that about me and is lying? The important thing to do is not for any one of us to personalize. First of all, we know what we have and have not done. And I would hope many brothers aren't falling into that category. And 9 times out of 10, when these women talk about sexual assault, 9 times out of 10 is what happens. There's no reason for a woman to come forward and lie about that.
Is it true that there are, I mean, you look at the brother Brian Banks, there's a movie being made about him, the brother who, a woman who said he raped her, he didn't, went to jail, lost his NFL career. It was simply not true. But the reality is there are men who do these crimes. And the point that I made, or I always make, is somebody wants to accuse me of that, oh, hell, we're going to have a hearing. Oh, it's going to be public. And I'll be there on time. Because my deal is, I know I've never done anything along those lines. And if you want to go there, see, that's where personal integrity comes in. But yeah, when you hear men say, well, you know, I'm not so sure, but they're in denial about even their own sisters and nieces and mothers who actually have had to experience that.
Well, but I would take it this way, particularly since we're talking about black men. As you just mentioned, Brian Banks and others, there's a history of black men being falsely charged with sexual assault and being lynched for it. All right? This is why it's important for us to vote, for all black men to vote. In this particular case, you have a larger number, proliferation of white men. White women are finally coming out and charging white men for a change. And we ought to want those white men held accountable, because we were executed and lynched and didn't even do anything. In 99% of these cases, this is a white woman trying to cover herself or claim something that happened that didn't happen to, you know, appease her husband or what have you. But for these white men, then they deserve whatever scrutiny they're getting for a change, and we ought to be there to support these women and vote them out of office.
All right, then. Mark Thompson, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much.
New York, brother. You know, I left if I'm missing the Yankee-Red Sox game up at the stadium.
I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it. All right, folks, time for my commentary. 2 days ago, former Chicago police commander John Burge died at the age of 70. I tweeted last night that Satan is welcoming him with open arms to hell. Why am I saying that? Because John Burge was an evil son of a bitch. John Burge was a man who led the torture of black men, who beat confessions out of black men, sent black men to prison who did not commit crimes. But if you want to understand how sadistic these police unions are and how they support their own, this is what was said about John Burge by an individual who, of course, was with the union. This is the former Fraternal Order of Police president, Dean Angelo. He told the Chicago Sun-Times that John Burge was treated unfairly. Quote, John Burge put a lot of bad guys in prison. You know, people picked a career apart that was considered for a long time to be an honorable career and a very effective career. Now, I don't know that John Burge got a fair shake based on the years and years and years of service that he gave the city. But we'll have to wait and see how eventually that plays out in history, I guess. No, actually, we don't have to wait how it's going to play out in the history of Mr. Angelo, because the reality is John Birch was a thug who had a badge and a gun, a thug who ran a unit that beat prisoners with phone books, that attached cables to their testicles and shocked them, the same thing that he learned to do to torture people when he was in Vietnam. That is not an honorable man. To say that his career was picked over, the reality is this man sent black men to prison who did not commit crimes. The city of Chicago has had to spend millions of dollars on reparations, paying those men because of how they were tortured by John Burge. John Burge finally went to prison when he lied in a civil suit. Of course, was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. He got out early and was placed on home confinement. But see, here's the issue. All those years when Chicago was being sued, the taxpayers were paying those lawyers. They were paying his pension. John Burge is a despicable man. John Burge is the kind of cop, he is the reason why people don't trust police in Chicago, because of how he behaved. And shame on this former head of the Fraternal Order of Police for speaking up for this man. I said it once and I say it again. John Burge went straight to hell because he was an evil man. He was an evil man, and Satan has one of his own now with him. Folks, don't forget, you can always watch Roland Martin Unfiltered every single day, 6 p.m. Eastern. We will live stream the show again at 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 6 a.m., and 10 a.m. We also want you also to support the show as well. Go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to join our Bring the Funk fan club. It is crucially important for us to support our own, to fund our own, because when it comes to our stories, there's no guarantee somebody else will tell our story. And I've always said we also must fund our freedom. And so, again, we had some technical issues again on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to sort those things out. We'll have it all taken care of. You can watch the restream of this show a little bit later. For all the folks here in New York at YouTube's headquarters, thank you so very much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow, where we will be streaming live the unveiling of the statue of Alice Dunnigan, the first black woman to serve as a White House reporter. I don't know who else is going to be there, but Roland Martin Unfiltered will be there, live streaming the unveiling and also the program on her after. So the unveiling is tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and the program is going to be taking place at 1 p.m., and we'll have our cameras there, and we'll have some of that for tomorrow's show as well. Y'all take care. Have a great day. Holla!
Roland.